Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching. The descent began without resistance. Over Juno 7's crystalline stratosphere, four alien dreadnoughts broke formation, their hulls gleaming in geometric patterns denoting command hierarchy. The lead vessel, marked with the twin sigils of the Servani Dominion, released its drop ships in synchronized bursts, 50 assault carriers plunging through the sky, silent and precise, as if this were merely a matter of formality. Admiral Kortalvek of the Servani watched the feed with a satisfied flick of his dual mandibles. His 6 eyes scanned the data projection. 0 electromagnetic resistance. No planetary defense grid active. No fleet in orbit. The humans had done nothing. It was confirmation of everything the Council had believed. "This will be swift," he said, his voice like gravel submerged in oil. "Begin ground deployment." Behind him, the diplomatic channel hummed softly with the echo of the final vote. "The motion has passed with unanimous agreement. Effective immediately, all human colonies are to be secured and their populations integrated into auxiliary military service. Reprogramming facilities to be deployed across designated sectors. Cultural assets to be archived. Linguistic integration protocols to commence within 1 cycle. Civil resistance to be pacified with minimal loss." The voice belonged to High Speaker Rilak Mar of the Quarren Ascendancy, whose translucent skull pulsed with soft light beneath a crown of bone-like ridges. His image shimmered across every fleet's command hub. Dozens of species had joined in the decision: the Kavari Swarm, the Medhari Conglomerate, the Vothran Collective, united by convenience more than ideology. Humanity was expendable. It was young. It was alone. Or so they thought. On the surface of Juno 7, the landing zones flared orange under the propulsion wash of descending troop carriers. Dust clouds rippled out over immaculate urban spires that towered like ivory monoliths into the sky. The city was silent. No soldiers. No citizens. No movement. Commander Karen of the Medhari Strike Force adjusted his respirator valves as he stepped off his dropship. His arachnid limbs clicked lightly against the marble-like pavement. His troops fanned out in formation, weapons drawn, scanning with full-spectrum sensors. "Nothing," his lieutenant muttered, eyes flicking nervously behind a helmet visor. "It's abandoned." "No," Karen replied, narrowing his primary optical slits. "It's waiting." They had expected bunkers. Maybe riots? Not silence. High above, the orbital feed zoomed in, sending data back to the bridge of the Vothran carrier Eclipse Trine. Captain Varek Dole watched the images in silence. Juno 7's megacity was pristine, untouched by chaos or decay. But that wasn't what unsettled him. The geometry, every tower, every boulevard, every plaza, followed a design too precise, too patterned. The city wasn't arranged for comfort or function. It was structured like something mechanical, like something dormant. Before Dole could voice the thought, a deep frequency pulse registered on the comms, not sound, but seismic. A signal. It came from beneath the city. On the ground, the Medhari squads froze as a tremor surged through the pavement, silent, but undeniable. A second followed. Then a third, stronger than the last. And then Juno 7 awakened. At first, it was a hiss. The tops of several towers flared open like steel petals, their interiors glowing with incandescent blue light. Energy surged down internal conduits. What had appeared to be decorative spires split in half, retracting to reveal magnetic rail arrays. One by one, the towers of Juno 7 transformed. Apartment blocks split along hidden seams, revealing armor plating. Streets cracked and lifted, not from impact, but by design. Massive turbine housings unfurled like blooming flowers, their cores igniting with plasma energy. "What is this?" his second-in-command whispered. Then came the sound. A low, guttural resonance that vibrated every bone in their bodies. It wasn't mechanical. It was alive. The ground beneath them exploded. From the center of the city, what once seemed like a civic monument rose on hinged pillars, the soil cracking and falling away as the head of an enormous machine surfaced. Its eyes, if they were eyes, burned with pulsing red light. Cannons extended from its flanks. Missile pods rose from what had been courtyards. Karen screamed for retreat. Too late. The Tarask fired. The railguns launched their payloads at hypersonic speed. 3 drop ships disintegrated mid-lift. Plasma lances burst from the tower-mounted cannons, cleaving through armored troop carriers like paper. Whole sectors of the invading force were erased in the first 30 seconds. In orbit, the Servani fleet reeled as ground feeds went dark. Talvik staggered back, eyes wide. "What is happening down there?" A new transmission cracked through the static. No voice. Just a signal burst. Encrypted human old-style military unit 04A engaged. Confirmed kill count, 2,913. Talvik didn't understand. Then the number started to update in real time. 2,913 turned to 4,006, then 7,291. Commander Karen never made it to his evac point. A shockwave from the Tarask's main cannon vaporized his entire platoon in one pulse. Above him, an entire street lifted, separated into segments, and pivoted skyward to reveal missile arrays that targeted and fired simultaneously at fleeing transports. One by one, the remaining invader ships attempted to flee atmosphere. The sky turned white. From beneath the city, plasma propulsion ignited. The colossal frame of the Tarask rose from the collapsing shell of Juno 7, the remains of the foe city peeling away like dead skin. Its hull shimmered with active shielding, scorched from hundreds of impacts, none of which had penetrated. The machine was more than a fortress. It was an ambush weapon. And it was airborne. 3 alien carriers attempted a coordinated interception, flanking the now rising Tarask. They never got within range. Automated countermeasures triggered from suborbital silos hidden beneath the planet's crust. Guided torpedoes launched, splitting into thousands of kinetic shards mid-flight. The carrier shredded apart like parchment in a storm. Back aboard the Eclipse Trine, Captain Varek Dole struggled to re-establish control. Dozens of comms channels screamed simultaneously, requests for support, for evacuation, for comprehension. None came. "Retreat to high orbit," he shouted. "All units fall back." His screen went black, then flashed once. Unit 04A engaged. Current count, 21,487. Then another line appeared. Begin secondary wake cycle. From the moon's dark side, dormant relays began to blink. Just 2, then 3, as silent forms stirred beneath the regolith. Talvik had seen enough wars to know what was happening. This wasn't retaliation. It was preparation. The humans had not just built defenses. They had built traps. And now the traps were springing shut. As the remnants of the alien fleets tried to withdraw, their comms went dead. Jamming fields bloomed across the sector, cutting off navigation relays. Escape trajectories were corrupted. Some ships turned in circles. Others collided in chaos. A handful tried blind jumps, only to emerge inside asteroid fields or into carefully laid mine webs. Below them, Juno 7 no longer resembled a city. It was a weapon. A lie forged in architecture. A ghost made of steel. And it was only the beginning. The signal from Juno 7 hadn't stopped echoing through the galactic relays when the next wave began. In the depths of the Almadari archive on Ka Prime, Counselor Yin Voran's tendrils coiled around his data console as he watched the footage for the 9th time: the rise of the Tarask, the destruction of the Medhari battalions, the final atmospheric breach where the city itself took flight and incinerated 3 capital ships. No defense. No negotiation. Just annihilation. "This cannot be human engineering," he hissed, his voice vibrating through his thoracic vocal chamber. His aide, a smaller creature of the same species, hesitated before speaking. "Preliminary data from other sectors suggest otherwise." Voron's dorsal fin stiffened. "What other sectors?" "Rhea, Aros Prime, Eklon Belt. All have gone dark within the last 2 hours." Elsewhere, in a subterranean war chamber on Drael, for different species of the Outer Ring Alliance argued over scrambled feats. A Kavari emissary slammed one of his barbed limbs against the projection table, his voice crackling through his translator node. "This was supposed to be containment, not extinction." The Vothran admiral present, a towering figure with layered obsidian plates and no visible mouth, only nodded slowly. His answer came through a text-only transmission on a side screen. "We have been outmaneuvered. The colonies were not colonies. They were bait." Panic grew quietly across the stars. It wasn't the defeat that shook them. It was the silence from Earth. No declarations. No retaliation orders. No messages at all. Across 12 sectors, task forces regrouped and launched fresh fleets toward human-controlled systems, determined to restore order before fear turned to collapse. Reinforcements moved toward Rhea, a Class 4 terraforming site known for its agricultural exports and low-tech civilian population. Scouts reported minor thermal anomalies, likely geothermal activity. No sign of weaponry. They arrived to find the city collapsed inward. From orbit, it resembled a sinkhole. But it was structured. Deliberate. An inverted shell of steel curled around a central core that shimmered faintly under active shielding. And before they could process what they were seeing, the ground ignited. Massive pylons erupted from the crater walls, firing coordinated shock pulses in perfect arcs. The invading ships fell into a kinetic trap, dragged into a spiraling descent. Above them, what looked like a weather station unfolded into a plasma bombardment turret. Within 7 minutes, the fleet was gone. At Aros Prime, a similar pattern played out. Scans revealed what appeared to be an orbital ring undergoing construction. The fleet approached cautiously, trying to establish contact. The ring responded with a focused EMP pulse, so precisely modulated it bypassed shield harmonics and fried every navigational interface on the alien cruisers. Then the missiles came. Launched from inside buildings, from fake comm towers, from sculptures in public parks. By the time the 5th colony responded to attack, the galaxy had lost over 40,000 troops and 16 capital vessels. And Earth remained quiet. In low orbit above Earth, aboard the UEDF flagship Resolute, the command deck was bathed in dim tactical lighting. Holographic interfaces flickered with real-time data from the far reaches of human-occupied systems. At the center stood General Jansen Miles. Around him, the bridge was manned by a dozen officers, veterans with lined faces and still fingers, young tacticians with sleepless eyes and clipped voices. None spoke unless prompted. Not because they feared him, but because no one wasted time when the general was present. Miles stared at the projection of the Caldera's sector. Juno 7 now marked as a red starburst with no labels, just numbers. Below it, new icons were appearing. Rhea, Aros Prime, Eklon Belt, each marked in gray, then red, then dark green. The green meant success. Not survival. Not victory. Execution. Captain Lane Lennox approached quietly, a data pad in hand. "Confirmation from Eklon Belt. Secondary units synchronized. No surviving vessels." Miles didn't look away from the projection. Response time? 6 minutes. Full intercept cycle. He gave a single nod. Acceptable. Behind him, Lieutenant Adrian Sturrock, one of the youngest officers on the deck, swallowed hard as he monitored live telemetry from Arcos Prime. "They're trying to regroup," he muttered. Miles turned slightly. "Define they?" "The Council fleets. We're seeing unit realignments near the Avara Rim. 9 battle groups from at least 4 species converging." "Good," Miles replied. "Let them." There was no applause on the bridge. No cheers. Only the hum of coordination and the soft sound of fingers gliding across glass. "Bring up Rhea," he said. The hologram shifted. A flattened terrain map appeared, showing a dissected topography of the colony's site. He pointed to a structure on the southern edge. "Who authorized artillery to launch from this district?" Lennox stepped in. "That was Colonel Heron's call, sir. The evac failed. He acted on priority." Miles studied it for a moment, then gave a short nod. "Note the discretion. He made the right call." Sturrock leaned forward. "Sir, they're still trying to contact us." Miles raised an eyebrow. "Which sector?" "Multiple. Joint transmission from Quarren, Medhari, and Servani. They're requesting dialogue. Ceasefire terms." The room went quiet. Miles paused. "Are any of our forward operations active within their communication range?" "No, sir." "Then we're not hearing them." The room resumed movement. In the outer ridges of the Eklon Belt, the latest invasion force met its end inside an asteroid field, one rigged with proximity mines and gravitic traps disguised as mining equipment. The fleet barely had time to deploy before the rocks themselves detonated, turning the battle into a slaughter in seconds. One alien captain, Threx Vel of the Kavari Swarm, survived just long enough to send a final burst transmission. "Humanity deceived us. The colonies were warships. The cities were weapons. You must understand. They were waiting." He died seconds later when an orbital kinetic spike drove through his command bridge at Mach 17. No blast. Just a line of heat through metal and atmosphere. Then silence. Back aboard the Resolute, Miles stood before a separate display, one not projected to the rest of the bridge. It was old. Older than most of the people serving under him. The interface was blunt, utilitarian. No hollow. No ambient glow. Just a column of green text across a black background. Project Tarask. Active units 06. Sleeping units 19. Strategic readiness green. Counteraction locked. Neural sync stable. He stood still, jaw set tight, eyes unmoving, as if trying to see past the data. His reflection hovered faintly in the glass. Weathered features. The quiet weight of consequence. One hand hovered over the controls. His fingers curled, then relaxed. A new prompt blinked to life. "Do you wish to initiate Global Phase 2? Miles stared at it for a full second. Then he didn't touch it. Instead, he turned toward the command floor. "Initiate dark scans on all frontier colonies. Anomaly sweeps every 12 minutes. Include atmospheric static drift." Captain Lennox turned sharply, brows tightening. "Sir, that includes civil sectors. We'll set off early evac triggers. Panic." Miles nodded once, eyes steady. "Then let them panic in the right direction." Across the bridge, a few glances exchanged silently. Sturrock looked up from his console, his mouth pressed thin. "Sir," he asked carefully, "if they escalate again?" Miles met his eyes. This time he paused, and when he spoke, his tone carried less edge, more gravity. "They already have. They just don't understand what escalation looks like yet." He turned toward the central hollow map, where a soft blue pulse glowed from the far side of the Avara Rim, one of the sleeping units still untouched. His voice dropped, just above a whisper. "We didn't want this." Sturrock shifted in place, his grip tightening around the edge of his station. Lennox gave a sharp nod, already turning to carry out the scan orders. A junior officer at the rear of the room adjusted a control panel without needing to be told. "They chose this path," Miles continued, louder now. "But we chose to be ready." He walked back to the center of the bridge, stopped, turned. "No broadcasts. No threats. No demands. Let them fill in the silence themselves." A pause settled over the deck, not absence of motion, but of noise. Hands moved. Eyes stayed on task. But beneath every breath, every keystroke, something deeper had taken hold. Conviction. Quiet, unshakable. And shared. And behind that conviction, the quiet weight of a man who would carry the cost. The corridor, outside the command deck, was silent. General Jansen Miles stood alone, one hand resting on the cold metal frame of a viewport overlooking Earth's upper atmosphere. Below him, continents turned slowly beneath veils of cloud. His reflection hovered faintly in the glass, creased brow, tired eyes. The edge of his uniform collar pressed sharp against his neck. He hadn't slept. Not since Caldera's. Not since the cities screamed and the stars went quiet. He watched the slow arc of the planet. The shape of it. Home. Then his eyes shifted to the data slate in his other hand, where a silent alert blinked at the bottom of the screen. Tarask 7, full sync confirmed. Miles gave a final glance, then turned and walked back inside. 7 years earlier, in an underground facility beneath the Antarctic ice array, the temperature inside the briefing dome hovered near freezing. Steam curled from untouched coffee cups scattered across the table. 12 men sat in a rough semicircle facing a projection wall of schematics. No colors. No animations. Just black and white wireframes, components, nodes. At the center, the skeletal structure of something massive. Part city. Part machine. All weapon. Miles stood at the head of the table. He was leaner then, sharper. His hair not yet gray. He pointed toward a cluster of lines near the diagram's core. "That's where the spinal shield array integrates with the plasma vents," he said. "It cannot be surface mounted. I don't care what the orbital engineers say." Beside him, Dr. Nolan Fuchs, one of the lead systems architects, leaned forward, adjusting his glasses with a tremble he tried to hide. "Sir, if we submerge that array beneath the venting towers, we lose 90 seconds of defensive activation during liftoff." Miles didn't flinch. "Then we design the towers to fire while buried. We don't get second chances. These won't be warships. They'll be cities. Their delay is our defeat." At the rear of the room, Admiral Pierce, the oldest man present, cleared his throat. "And what happens if we never use them?" Miles met his gaze. "Then we win without firing." Silence settled across the room. In present time, aboard the alien warship Voraxium, panic spread like infection. The command deck trembled as sensor feeds buckled and dissolved into static. Vice-Chancellor Nevin Core of the Veil Dominion, a sleek, cobalt-scaled figure with ribbon-like sensory tendrils coiling from his shoulders, gripped the edge of his throne with clawed fingers. "Where is the interference coming from?" he snapped. His chief sensor analyst, a pale-eyed ethery named Weissel, stuttered as he tried to respond. "And not from space, from within, sir. It's recursive. They're in our own systems." A second later, a high-pitched whine pierced the deck. The lights dimmed, flared red, and the Voraxium's primary viewport went dark. The fleet outside had stopped moving, or rather, it moved, but erratically. Cruisers spun mid-axis. Frigates drifted into each other. Fire control systems ignited at random. Then one of them opened fire on another without warning. No orders. Just pure sensor confusion and corrupted targeting data. Back on the Resolute, Miles watched it all unfold from the tactical holosphere. The entire Veil Strike Armada was tearing itself apart, firing at phantoms, launching countermeasures against ghosts. Signal injection active, Lennox reported beside him. Feedback loop is stable. Miles gave a small nod. Maintain it until collapse. Another feed opened on the interface, this one from orbit above her axis, a neutral trade hub in the inner reach. A VRON destroyer had begun launching warheads toward its own support carriers. The image cut out with a burst of static. Back in the past, in a subterranean testing site in northern Nevada, the first prototype of the energy inversion tower went active. It didn't fire. It reflected. A drone cruiser, built from salvaged Medhari hull plates, opened fire with standard plasma lances. The moment the beam struck the tower's inertial walls, they curved, caught in a spherical inversion lattice, and launched back toward the drone, cutting it in half. Miles stood behind the reinforced viewport with Dr. Fuchs and Chief Engineer Al-Masri, expression unreadable. He simply nodded. That's one. Beside him, Fuchs rubbed his hands together for warmth. That beam wasn't just mirrored. It was amplified. Al-Masri, a quiet man with a data implant blinking against his temple, added without looking up. Energy conservation via redirection. Not a shield. A weaponized refraction dome. Miles folded his arms. Make it smaller. Civilian rooftops. Utility towers. Minaret spires. If it looks like a gun, they'll know. Fuchs lowered his coffee without drinking. Al-Masri blinked once, then looked away from the viewport. Admiral Pierce leaned back, arms crossed, jaw set tight, like he'd seen too much to argue, but not enough to agree. Outside, snow drifted silently against the reinforced dome. Cold. Quiet. Calculated. 7 years later, the silence would return. But this time, it would scream. Now, across dozens of star systems, the effect was the same. Transmissions flooded the interstellar network in bursts of panic. We are under attack. No, our own systems are locking us out. They've inverted our command lattice. We can't see, can't target. Initiate fallback. All units, initiate fallback. We're losing control of navigation. Something's overriding. Targeting arrays are live, firing on friendlies. We can't shut it down. They came in every language. Each message clipped by static or overridden by foreign code. In the orbital council station of Vagarkai, a massive spire above the capital moon of the Servani core, Counselor Yelthan Dar slammed his ceremonial staff into the command dais. I want evacuation transports launched from every level, he barked. His aides hesitated. The Servani, tall and rigid, with bioluminescent gill crests, were not known for emotion. But Yelthan's voice cracked. An aide stepped forward, voice trembling. Sir, the port relays are offline. We cannot initiate departure cycles. The traffic grid. Then a shadow passed outside the viewport. 3 ships. Matte black. No insignias. No heat signatures. No comm broadcasts. They hovered in silence. Yelthan's voice turned brittle. Are those human? No one answered. We didn't detect them. We didn't even see them. No answer came. But the sky above the station filled with targeting lines. The transports that did manage to launch were torn from orbit before clearing the moon's gravity well. Back aboard the Resolute, Lieutenant Sturrock flinched as a news signal hit his console. Sir, we've got confirmed evacuation attempts out of Servani Central Command. Miles leaned over slightly. Status? Blocked. We caught them mid-lift. Scrambled their NAV data before they broke orbit. Losses high. Miles didn't move, but his jaw tensed. He didn't celebrate. He looked down at the hollow map, then touched a control node. Patch in the current traffic of the central corridor. Let's see who's next to run. The projection zoomed. Dozens of movement vectors. Not military formations. Civilian mass. Lennox frowned. Refugee flight. They'll try to cover it as diplomatic movement, Miles replied. But we've seen this before. They'll send officials on one channel and families on another. Confuse our optics. Stretch our reach. Sturrock glanced at the screen. Sir, some of those ships have children aboard. Miles didn't answer at first. His fingers tapped once on the hollow table. Then again, slower. Finally, they curled into a fist. I know, he said. His voice wasn't cold, just final. Then he looked up, steadier. And I know exactly which species lined up to vote us out of existence while shaking hands over trade agreements. He stepped forward, addressing the room more openly now. His tone remained controlled, but clear. This isn't about cruelty. It's about message. Every fleet that watches those ships run will remember what silence looks like. What patience becomes when it runs out. The silence that followed wasn't uncertain. It was listening. Miles studied the movement vectors a second longer, then turned back to Lennox. Deploy silent orbitals near the outer moons. I want full sensor resolution, but no engagement unless fired upon. If they run, let them. If they lie, expose them. If they shoot, he let the rest hang in the air, then finished it. Make sure they don't get a second shot. He gave Sturrock a glance, not cold, but waiting. We're not here to be feared. We're here to be understood. And they'll understand what preparedness looks like. Outside the bridge viewport, another terrace came online. And somewhere deep beneath the surface of a forgotten mining colony, another city stirred. Steel shifted under soil. Turbines spun in silence, waiting for its moment. The machine was awake, and it was not alone. Others waited, beneath cities, within clouds, behind stars, ready. Above the blue curve of Earth, the fleet didn't move. It didn't need to. Everything that mattered was already in place. 1,000 kilometers above sea level, the human defense wall hung like a noose in low orbit. Motionless, silent, watching. The Resolute sat at its center, flanked by 12 stealth cruisers and a formation of orbit-locked artillery platforms camouflaged within dead satellites. No signals were sent. No engines burned. No lights blinked. And no alien vessel dared approach. The galactic comm grid had gone from panic to paralysis. 37 systems broadcast open inquiries. 19 sent formal appeals for negotiation. 11 dispatched ceasefire terms into the void. The humans answered none of them. On the bridge of the Resolute, General Miles stood with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on a massive sphere of orbital telemetry projected across the war table. Each ring represented a different tier of planetary defense. They pulsed slowly. Deep red. Steady. Untouched. Status of the perimeter, he said. Captain Lennox answered crisply. Anomaly sweep clear. Ring 0 is locked. All 6 geosynchronous positions report clean thermals. Nothing but drifting junk and probe shadows. Miles nodded once. Good. He turned to Sturrock, who was hunched over a console on the far side of the bridge. Updates from the dead zones. Sturrock tapped a few keys. Tarasque 12 confirmed silent lockout across Callus Reach. No vessel has entered within 5 AU in the last 9 hours. Miles didn't speak immediately. He studied the telemetry, as if waiting for it to betray him. Nothing came. Stillness. Not peace. Something colder. In the citadel of Primal Accord, capital station of the Threx Coalition, panic was no longer whispered. It was screamed. High Magistrate Crottle Var, A serpentine being with segmented bone ridges and phosphorescent veins stood hunched in his command chamber. His gills fluttered with visible distress. "The humans are broadcasting nothing," he growled. "No warnings. No lists of demands. This is not how war is conducted, not even by primitives." Otoversk, a younger Threx with twitching ocular tendrils, approached carefully. "Sir, we've intercepted multiple command collapses from the Medhari and Servani lines. They don't know who's still in control." Crottle turned toward the flickering feed. Images danced across the screen, Medhari senators screaming into inactive comms, clawing at control interfaces that no longer responded. A Vothran High Marshal collapsed during a public address, his data stream glitching mid-sentence as his life signs flatlined. "Have we heard anything from Earth?" Crottle asked. "Only silence." Crottle's eyes narrowed. A pause. Then we should assume we've already lost." The ring around Earth stirred, not visibly, not to the untrained eye. But across the Resolute systems, thousands of dormant protocols pulsed awake. Automated defense units synced orbital trajectories. Kinetic rail platforms shifted by microscopic degrees. Above the Indian Ocean, a cluster of disguised resource satellites shed their outer shells and locked into attack position, exposing neutron coil cannons meant to defend entire hemispheres. Miles watched it all come online. He gave no orders. He didn't need to. Each system had been waiting. "Phase integrity?" he asked. Lennox scanned the readings. "Green across the board. Ring 1 and 2 have full weapon charge. All mirror arrays are aligned." Sturek looked up. "Sir, atmospheric optics confirm some visual anomalies from the ground. Civilian visibility increasing." Miles nodded slowly. "Let them see. They need to know we're still here." He stepped forward, arms at his sides, face unreadable in the blue glow of the projection. Behind him, a soft chime interrupted. "Sir," Lennox said, adjusting his console. "Unidentified mass just breached magnetic silence over the western ridge. Size matches a light scout class. Probably reconning. On intercept with Ring 2. Speed low. No weapons hot. Let the eye take it." A faint hum passed through the deck. In orbit high above the Pacific, the scout ship passed the threshold of Earth's magnetosphere. It vanished into a concealed node within Ring 2. The Autonomous Defense Intelligence foretagged the vessel, mapped its interior, identified 3 occupants, and disabled all electronic functions in under 4 seconds. 1 second later, its propulsion ignited in reverse, dragging the vessel to a controlled halt, just shy of the second ring. Back on the Resolute, a new feed opened. 3 alien infiltrators, species, Kajari. Slim, multi-jointed, chlorophyll skin, cranial implants. They sat frozen inside their vessel as hard light clamps secured their limbs. No movement. No chance to escape. Cicada, the AI, displayed their entire infiltration protocol, line by line, hacked and decrypted in real time. Sturek blinked at the screen. "They thought they'd make it past that. They were never meant to survive," Miles said calmly. "They were meant to test us. Or scare us." He shook his head faintly. "Now they're part of the silence." The silence deepened on the Medhari capital moon of Lokvarin. Live broadcasts began to fracture. Anchor feeds stuttered midstream. Government panels blinked out mid-session. On one stream, a senior administrator wept openly as her broadcast failed, clutching at the signal node as if begging it to speak. On the Trinet of Quarren, Supreme Overseer Hick Vo, his gelatinous form contained within a rigid armored frame, attempted to issue a system-wide declaration of ceasefire. The words never transmitted. The human kill satellites orbiting their comm array had already realigned. Back on the Resolute, Lieutenant Sturek watched it all come in. Slow. Broken. unraveling. "Sir," he said more quietly, "they're breaking. They don't understand what's happening, what we're doing." Miles turned toward him. His expression wasn't angry. It was tired. "They are used to fear that speaks, that demands, that barks before it bites." He moved closer to the central interface, placing both hands on its edge. "They've never seen fear that waits, that listens." A pause. Then Sturrock asked, "Do we talk to them now? Do we respond?" Miles stared at the orbital layout for a moment. Thousands of vessels. None human. Not one closer than $5 Australian. He looked out the forward viewport. "Not yet. Next part coming soon."